History will know 2020 as the year the world shut down. There will be countless stories of the COVID era, detailing global panic, public unrest, and of course, the loved ones we lost to this novel virus. There's a lot to mourn about this time, but cancer researchers may be able to add a silver lining to the history books. It's true that many cancer patients who caught COVID got worse. However, doctors soon began noticing a strange phenomena occurring in oncology offices across the country.
There were some cases, a handful of cases that were actually reported in the scientific literature where in some patients who got severe COVID, their cancer actually shrunk.
That's Dr. Ankit Bharat, Chief of Thoracic Surgery at Northwestern Medicine and Director of the Canning Thoracic Institute. He was seeing some temporary regression of tumors in his own patients who were receiving double lung transplants. Northwestern piloted this procedure for patients with severe COVID, and it was quickly adopted by surgeons around the world. Luckily, it also gave them a front row seat to this medical wonder, a puzzle they were desperate to understand. And in order to get to the bottom of this phenomenon, we have to first look at what makes cancer such a uniquely effective illness.
One of the fundamental questions is, why is it that the cancer cells can survive in the human body? Because they're technically foreign to the human body. So why is it that the immune system is not clearing or attacking and killing those cancer cells? So that question has really been a cornerstone of a lot of work in the science, in the scientific world. And one of the mechanisms that has been discovered is the following. So the cancer cells, whether at the original site or metastasis in the lung or anywhere else, they produce a protein.
The protein is CCL2. The tumors release it into the bloodstream to find immune cells called monocytes and lure them back to the site of the cancer. It usually would be a great thing for these immune cells to find the tumor because they could fight against it. However, the CCL2s have created a Trojan horse.
As these monocytes come towards them, particularly to the site where they have found a home, meaning the cancer cells, they transform these monocytes into becoming cancer-friendly cells. So they essentially brainwash them in a manner that instead of these monocytes killing the cancer cells, they start to protect them from other immune cells in the human body. So, using the example of the US defense system, imagine if the enemy could attract all our, like the Navy SEALs, and then now the Navy SEALs are then fighting against the Army. So basically, you just kind of brainwash them. So that's an important mechanism that many cancers utilize to protect themselves from the immune system.
So what changes when COVID is added into this mix? Bharat's recent research, published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, has revealed that in cases of severe COVID, the immune system triggers the virus to release RNA. But when this RNA attaches to the monocytes, it actually acts as an invisible shield, a mechanism no one had anticipated.
But the interesting thing there is the monocytes don't change their shape or form. So the cancer cells are trying to recruit these monocytes, but the RNA of the COVID virus has already made them anti-cancer cells or cancer-fighting cells. So when the cancer cells bring these monocytes to their site and try to transform them into cancer-friendly cells, they don't get transformed. And in fact, they start to kill them there.
These monocytes, called INCMs, become double agents. But while these cells play an important role, they don't actually do any of the killing. Once inside the tumor, the cells release chemicals that tell the body's natural killer cells the exact location of the cancer. So why are these INCMs such an important middleman? Bharat explains that without them, the NK cells wouldn't be able to navigate the complexities of the human body.
Sometimes patients can have hundreds of sites of metastasis. So you cannot really develop a system where artificially we can inject these natural killer cells. And the other thing is, they have to, and it's not as simple as injection because, every organ is so complex. They have fine blood vessels and all that. It's like, if you look at Google Maps, the United States of America may just look like one island. But obviously, if you really zoom in, the precise location of, let's say, a house or something is very complicated. It's surrounded, it could be, all the streets and all of these things. But from far away, it can look very simple. So the organs are like that, so where the cancer cell is actually hiding is very complex. And you can think you're injecting something somewhere, but they may be far off,
making the INCMs an essential part of the cancer-fighting mission. Interestingly, these specific monocytes have been described in research for years, but Bharat says that it's always just been in passing. No one took the time to figure out even the basics, like how the body produces them or what their role is. In fact, Bharat says they were never given a name.
The big thing was that people didn't know what these cells are and whether the different descriptions are referring to the same cell and also what their biological role was. So we coined the term INCM because we said like all of these prior descriptions are the same. These are the same types of cells that we've been talking about with different names. So the way we did that was we isolated them from both humans and in mice. And we studied their structure through the electron microscope, and we found that they're the same type of cell we're talking about. We studied their entire genomic profile, and we found that they're the same, in different scenarios.
A breakthrough for the research. But since doctors can't go around injecting COVID's RNA into patients, the researchers needed to find a drug that can mimic the same effect. Luckily, Bharat's team quickly realized that the INCMs are created from the RNA activating a specific receptor within the monocyte.
These receptors are like mini locks on the cells. So the RNA is the key, and it will get inside that lock and opens the door where the RNA can go in and cause those effects.
Instead of having to build one from scratch, Bharat's team was able to sift through the various known drug compounds to find one that mimics the effects of COVID's RNA.
Fortunately, in science, hundreds and thousands of compounds have been screened. So again, lock key analogy, there are lots of keys available. We just don't know often which key unlocks which lock. So by discovering that the COVID RNA is going through that specific receptor, all we had to do was look at the published literature and available compounds and see what compounds are already made that can bind to that same receptor and cause that same effect.
Once the team had identified a potential compound, they used both human cells and animal models to run their tests. Bharat was excited to see that the drug was successful, able to transform a normal monocyte into a cancer-fighting cell.
And then to make sure that this drug could work in a cancer setting, using animal models, we developed models of cancer metastasis using lung, breast, colon, and melanoma. These studies were done in mice. So we caused cancers to metastasize in mice and then treat these mice with cancer metastasis with the same drug.
Their goal was to see if these new INCMs would react the same and cause the cancer to shrink.
So we found that in all these 4 types of cancers that we tested in them with this drug, we could see dramatic reductions in the metastasis. And it was interesting that the RNA of the COVID obviously does this, but interestingly, other types of viruses that are RNA-based, like influenza, doesn't cause this. So this was an effect more specific to the RNA of the COVID.
A potential silver lining to the pandemic that shook the world. Bharat says this finding is a significant step in improving immunotherapies for cancer patients. A current problem with this treatment is that most, if not all, patients will develop a resistance to it, since the tumor cells quickly evolve to become immune to the attacks from the white blood cells called lymphocytes. However, INCMs may provide a unique solution.
These monocytes, these INCMs, particularly the anti-cancer cells, they don't rely on the lymphocytes. That's very exciting to us. They go to the site of cancer metastasis, and they bring in these very specific type of immune cells, and they're perhaps one of the most potent type of immune cells called NK cells. These NK cells can kill, they're like the real heavy-duty big guns. They will just kill cancer cells. And the cancer cells right now, there is no known mechanism of resistance against natural killer cells. So that's why we think it becomes really important because, this discovery could help us treat patients who have acquired resistance to the immunotherapy and don't have any other options.
You can find more information about Dr. Ankit Bharat and all of our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Radio Health Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farah. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. I'm Elizabeth Westfield.